Hello and welcome back to Desert DIY. If you are new here, my name is Corey. Today I am going to be upcycling these two pieces. The dining table was broken and in two separate pieces and would not stay together. And then this dining chair, I'm not sure if it actually goes with this dining table. They have similar feet, so it might, but they were kind of separate when I got them. And so I'm not 100% sure if that is the chair that goes with this table, but it has been chewed up by a dog, apparently, and is in really rough shape. And a lot of furniture flippers would see this and think, no, thank you. I don't have time to do all those repairs. But what I'm going to do instead of repairing it and keeping it as a dining table is I'm going to turn it into two desks. So for this video today, you're going to see me turn it into one of the two desks. I got a lot of requests for desks recently, and I don't know if you've noticed this. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but if you're looking to buy a desk right now, the prices are really high. Even when you're buying on Facebook Marketplace, I have found that the prices for desks are pretty extreme for secondhand desks. But this is because everybody's working from home and the supply and demand issue creates a huge price increase. So I couldn't buy one to fix up because it would be like buying a brand new one as far as the price goes. So when I saw that this dining set could not be put back together, it was missing pieces that I would never be able to find again. I was like, here we go. I can make two desks out of this. But I'm going to use some old legs that I had laying around from a previous project and create four legs for each half of this desk. And these little slide out pieces that come with this desk are so that you can extend it and put the leaves in. I have the leaves to this and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. Maybe if you have an idea, let me know in the comments down below. But I just wanted to reuse every part of this desk that I could. So I'm going to go ahead and take this apart, and you can see I'm using my Dremel tool right now, and I'm using the metal blade. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Dremel tools are amazing. They can do all sorts of different things, and I just switched it out and put my wood blade on there. You don't want to use a wood blade for metal or vice versa because it will dull the blade. And there is a nail in the middle of this area here, or maybe a screw. So I made sure that I cut around it and then take that wood blade off and put the metal blade back on, and it just cuts through like butter. I love this tool. I have a lot of fun with it. I actually used it a lot during our home renovation. When we did vinyl plank flooring in our house ourselves, I used this tool to cut all the special little shapes and stuff. I'm not sponsored or anything. I just really like using this tool. And I just cut off the little nubs that kind of line up the two halves of the table together, and then I'm using these wood pieces to create braces for the back legs of this desk. So I had marked both little brace pieces of wood, and then I also marked the two extra legs that I'm going to be adding to make it into a desk, and I just cut them all at the exact same time. So I cut that one, use it to mark the next leg, and then cut it to be the exact same height. That way I don't have a wobble in my desk. And I put this 1x3, maybe 1x4 board underneath as I'm screwing it on, so that way it all stays level. And I used some wood glue. I just got some cheap wood glue from the hardware store down the street and used that. And I'm going to pre-drill the holes before I screw it in because it's thin wood and old wood, and I just don't want it to crack because then it won't be as structurally sound. So pre-drilling is actually a step that you do need to take when doing something like this. And the screws I'm using were really long screws as well, so that's just giving you more opportunity to have a crack happen in your wood. And I just wood glued it on and then screwed it in from both sides, and I made sure that I used screws that were long enough to get a really good bite inside both pieces of the wood. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here on the right hand side and glue, pre-drill the holes, and then screw it in. I didn't put any wood pieces in the center here because I thought that it would be kind of a good spot for people to put wires down. Like if the girl who was needing a desk, she's doing online school, I believe, and needed a place to do it. And so I thought if she has a laptop, she can put her wires down the center there, and then they'll kind of disappear when she has the desk pushed against the wall. They won't get caught in between the desk and the wall, sort of thing. So that was my idea behind that, in case you were wondering. Now, flip the desk right side up and make sure everything is level, and then I'm going to fill in all the icky spots that is missing veneer or got chewed up. I'm using Dixie Belle's mud. I like to use Dixie Belle's mud as a wood filler because it is like super smooth and it doesn't dry extremely fast like the other ones do. So if you live in a climate that's dry like me, this is a really good product. And if you live in a place that's really humid, you might want to have the kind that dries much faster. But I'm just using my finger for all of the weird, awkward spots that are kind of too small to use a spatula. And this piece is like many of my other pieces that are so far gone that they're never going to be perfect again. So I am not going to pretend like I'm going to use this wood filler and then it's going to go right back to being perfect. I know there are techniques that you can do to create molds and recreate perfect shapes and things like that, but budget-wise, these pieces I am donating, so I can't spend a whole bunch of money on making molds and using resins and things like that to recreate shapes. So what I'm going to do then instead is I'm just going to own it. This piece is not perfect, and a lot of people out there who grab stuff off the side of the road are going to have the same situation. It's on the side of the road for a reason most of the time, or it's going to the dump for a reason, but it doesn't mean you can't make it cool. This piece is going to end up looking super cool, and it made somebody really happy even though it wasn't perfect. And like I always say, I'm not trying to make it look brand new, and I enjoy allowing the piece to still tell its story. So that's what I'm doing here too. This is the color I chose. It is like a gray lavenderish color. It is a paint by Rust-Oleum. I absolutely love Rust-Oleum spray paints. If you don't have a paint sprayer, or if you wish you had one but you don't have an air compressor, this is a great alternative. The spray paints that Rust-Oleum makes are phenomenal. They cover extremely well, and if it's in a spot where it's going to get a lot of wear and tear, you can use enamel paints. And I also have heard that Sherwin-Williams, the paint store, I believe, is they can make spray paints in any color that you want in a can. So that is a really neat hack, I guess, for the people who want to get a sprayed finish but don't have a paint sprayer. So I might use them in the future if I need to do like cool special colors or something like that. For the top, I'm going to use the rest of this Waverly brand chalk paint. It's in, I think the color's called Ivory or something like that. It's like an antique white. But I'm on a mission right now to only use what I have on hand and not buy anything else, because I have spent more in my budget than I should have on doing these flips. And since I am not reselling most of these pieces, I want to make sure that I'm not spending all of my YouTube income flipping the pieces. I would like to have a little bit to take home. I love what I do, but it is a full-time job, so I do need to have a bit of income coming in. So if you're somebody who's flipping, keep that in mind. Just use what you have sometimes when you're trying to keep the budget down. Look at the stains that came through on this. So a lot of people ask me, why don't you prime before you paint? The reason behind this is because I want to see where those stains are going to come through. Sometimes it doesn't stain everywhere and you just used a ton of primer doing the whole surface when there's only a few stains that pop through. And that was the case for this. The stains were only down the center right here, and I decided that I was just going to hit it up with shellac like I always do, and I just sanded down the piece first in both directions so that way it doesn't have any brush strokes coming through, like really obvious ones. I spray most of the time instead of using a paintbrush, so you guys don't get to see me do that part very often. But when I don't want to see brush strokes come through, I have to sand in between coats, or definitely before you do the clear coat, because then you'd just be sanding off the clear coat instead of sanding the paint flat first. And then with this shellac, I go in both directions to get twice the coverage and make sure that I only have to shellac it one time, put it on super heavy on flat surfaces, and just let it cure for the rest of the day. And then, as you can see now, I'm in a different outfit, so it's the next day and I'm using up the rest of that paint. It feels really good to not have to put back another bottle of paint into my paint supply little cabinet, because I have a ton of paints sitting in there waiting to be used, and I would like to dwindle that down quite a bit. And that is another reason why I'm going to be using what I have instead of buying new, because I do need to like downsize the stuff that I have in that cabinet. Now I'm going to do a really cool effect where I use this old stained piece of lace to create like a stencil of lace over top of this table. The girl who wanted this table desk for school, she just said that she wanted purple. So a lot of times I don't get a whole lot of details on what they like exactly. And so I'm kind of guessing, and I just went with light purple. I also had to be true to the style of the piece, and it has kind of like a Victorian style shape, and I wanted to keep it very feminine and like shabby chic because of the style of the piece. So that is why I chose to do this. I've never done this before, and I did learn something. It didn't come out as detailed as I wanted it to. It still looks pretty cool, and I'm happy with it, and the girl who received it was like so in love with it. She called me after receiving it and said how thankful she was, and it was really sweet, and it made my heart feel really great. But in the future, if I do that, I will do light coat instead of a heavy coat like I did on this piece, because the lighter the coat, the more it shows the details. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, because if you want to do this style of paint technique, then when you do it, just don't do a heavy coat over the top, or else you won't see those fine details of the lace. But I'm going to start working on the chair now while I'm waiting for everything to dry on the table. And I'm just sanding the whole entire thing down because it was pretty rough and jagged in some areas. And then I wipe it all down nice and clean and then go over it with the same paint color. I am trying to make them match. I'm not doing any kind of craziness on this set today. Not going really out of my comfort zone. I absolutely love purple. Purple is one of my favorite colors. So this is actually a project that was like my style. I loved it, and I would keep this in my own home for one of my daughters or something like that. This is definitely me right here. But I'm going to just do my technique that I always do. Start it upside down, flip it over right side up. Here is the padding that was inside the seat cushion. I think that it is made of coconut husk, and that kind of narrows down the age of this. So I believe this chair was made sometime before 1950s, because also here the fabrics tell the age. So the first layer of fabric was a black real leather, and that is a style that you would see earlier in the 1900s, and then the piece that went over it seems like it's from the 1950s, that teal color. And I'm going to use some of the rest of that can of my Gorilla spray glue. Again, I prefer Loctite glue over the Gorilla Glue, but it's got the job done. You just have to use quite a bit of it. And I just glue on the pad and then go over it with another piece of batting. And that batting helps get rid of the jagged edge shape of the pad. And then I'm going to use an old curtain to cover the seat. Make sure that you iron your fabric before you upholster, because even if you pull it tight, the wrinkles will still remain. And I just staple it on. My husband got me a new stapler. He surprised me with it, and it is a battery-powered one. It's Milwaukee brand. I'm not sure the price since it was a gift, but I love it. It works really well. I had a viewer send me an electric staple gun with the cord on it, and that also worked pretty well. So if you're looking for an electric stapler, I do recommend them. They do work well. And I just had a really rough time doing the corners on this piece. The fabric was pretty thick since it was a heavy curtain, and so it took me some finagling to get those corners to look nice, but it's always best to reuse and recycle when you can. Now I'm just going to sand the top, make sure it's nice and smooth, and then I'm going to do a really cool technique where I'm going to make this look like super antique distressed. So I'm distressing the piece right now, because, like I said earlier, I'm not trying to make this piece look perfect. I want to show its imperfections and its age and tell its story. So I'm going to just hit up those areas that are spots that I'd want to highlight with a 220 grit sandpaper. Then I wipe all that dust off, and I'm going to clear coat it after that, so that way the wood grain really pops. And I'm just using some spray lacquer. I'm using up my stash, like I said. So if you've seen my previous videos, I've used this lacquer before. It has a really intense like nail polish smell to it, and it's not the greatest as far as coverage goes, at least in my opinion. So I'm just trying to use it up and use it on something small like this where I'm just sealing little areas. And if you've been watching my channel for a really long time, you might recognize this Brie Wax liming wax. I used to use it all the time, and I just haven't had a chance to use it in a while since it didn't match the style of the pieces of furniture that I was donating. But I'm going to give this whole set a like whitewashed, antique, like dry brushed white paint sort of look with this liming wax. This wax goes on really smooth. I've used other brands of liming wax. I can't remember the name. It's like Amy Howard or something like that. That one did not go on as smooth, and it was like a little more grainy. Still does a cool effect, but nothing beats this Brie Wax liming wax, and it does have a smell to it. And since I had sprayed that lacquer, that's why I am wearing a respirator. I am very chemically sensitive as far as like it gives me really bad sore throats and I get allergies from it. So that's why I wear a respirator for stuff like this. And I definitely recommend doing it outdoors and not in your house. I learned that lesson the hard way. But I'm doing this coverage on the entire piece. So you wipe it on and then wipe it off and leave behind the excess, I guess, and it gives it that really cool whitewash look. And it kind of helps to make the imperfections look like they're there on purpose instead of like, ooh, it's not perfect. Here is how it turned out. I loved this piece. It was so fun doing it. I loved the color choice. I feel like it's something semi-neutral, and I haven't done neutral in a while, so I hope that you guys really enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, and I have the products linked in my Amazon store down below that I used in this video, so if you're looking for any of these products, that's where to find them. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to hit subscribe.